Hello world, we're going to have a little bit of Vino Veritas time today. So earlier this week, I was riding in my car, I was listening to Howard Stern, and this isn't going to turn into a Stern fanboy post, but for those of you that do know or don't know, Ronnie the limo driver is one of the characters on the show, and he refused to tell the rest of the cast who he was going to vote for. And people that had known him for around 20 plus years were threatening to no longer be his friend because their assumption was if he wasn't going to tell them who he was voting for, that must mean he is going to vote for Trump. Now, if the people would have came with arguments and said, okay, Ronnie, these are the issues where I believe Biden has the better path forward than Trump. But they didn't. All they did was come through and say, if you vote for Trump, that means you're a bigot, you're a racist. And then they accused him of only voting for Trump because he's also associated with NASCAR and has a lot of friends in NASCAR that have more conservative leanings. And it was really disgusting to listen to. And this is, one example, right, that was actually on the air. But these things happen all over the place where people completely disrespect one another. And instead of sticking to the issues and sticking to what, the reasons you should choose to vote for someone, you're not voting just for a personality, right? You're voting for policy. So why not stick to policy fucking discussions, right? But people don't. They go to name calling and all this other asinine bullshit. So here is something people need to understand. Tolerance. The left is always talking about tolerance, right? But they don't actually understand what tolerance means, okay? Tolerance is the ability and willingness to tolerate something, in particular, the existence of opinions that are different than our own. Tolerance does not mean agreement with other people, okay? So you can't come to me and say, well, because I have not given in to the media, Hollywood, and politicians' political correct speech about what I need to call certain people. Like if a person was born biologically male and then decides to turn their dick into a banana split and shove it inside themselves and call it a pussy, to me that is self-mutilation and a mental disorder. When I was a kid, this whole psychiatric boom was going on. Every parent would send their kid off to a psychiatric hospital, a rehab, a boot camp, if anything was wrong. There were these girls that used to cut on themselves, and that was deemed a psychological problem, right? Self-mutilation. Anorexia is a psychological disorder, right? Bulimia, a psychological disorder. But we don't have special things that we need to go call these people. But for some reason, when people decide that biology doesn't matter, aren't these the same fucking people that say climate change is indisputable because the science shows it? Well, fuck, doesn't biology show that you're a dude or you're a chick? I'm pretty sure it does. The other thing is, how many times has science been corrupted, right? We can look back to the 1950s and 60s when the food pyramid was created. The food pyramid was created to support big corn. That's why it was created. The science was bogus. They knew the science was bogus at the time, but the people funding it, big corn, lobbyists, got the science through, and it stated what it wanted to state. And then we know what happened. We blamed everything on fat and started adding sugar to our food, and then everybody got fucking fat. So that science was wrong. They said eggs were horrible for you. Now they say eggs are good for you. You know, if we can't even figure out, we being the scientists of the world, scientists and doctors, can't figure out what is the actual best diet for a human being. And then you want me to say that something even more complex as far as the entire atmosphere and ecosystem of the world, that the science is indisputable. But you can't even tell me what the fuck I'm supposed to eat and what I'm not supposed to eat. But your science now on climate change is indisputable. So I know that I'm kind of ranting. Like I said, this is a Vino Veritas post. I'll review it tomorrow and make sure that I didn't make too much of an ass of myself. And I know I've been jumping around a lot. But this whole political season just has me just completely baffled. Right? Healthcare. The polls show even Republicans and more centrist type Republicans are for healthcare, right? For a plausible universal healthcare system. But the Democrats do such a shitty job of selling it, right? You know, they come out, oh, we're going to do single payer. And then Biden comes out with his tax plan, right, to pay for these things that he wants to do. New York City, 62% total tax of your federal and state, right? And then you have 50 Cent jumping online saying, fuck this, I'm moving. Joe Rogan left California and moved to Texas earlier this year. And he put out podcasts about the mass exodus from California. So when you sit and see these Democrat-run states, right, and how people are fleeing from them, there's obviously something they're doing wrong. So what they need to do is adopt some of the ideas from the right to make it work. And I could say the same for the right. There are some good ideas on the left that the right could adopt, right? The right probably can put together a very comprehensive, good plan to be able to take care of everyone's health care without it costing a fortune. One thing that Trump did that you would have never seen the Democrats do was he's putting cost controls on medication, which all of Europe has done forever. So you can see where I'm going with this. There's some good and some bad on both sides. And if we could just take the good from each of them, put them together, and actually get these assholes in Congress and the Senate to work together, instead of worrying about being reelected all the time, actually work together to do something. I tell you what, term limits will solve that fucking problem. And we could do term limits without having Congress or Senate vote on it. You need 2/3 of the states to ratify it, which is a tall order. It would take a hell of a grassroots organization and push, but it could be done. And this really needs to be something people put some effort in and actually go and do. Because right now, this two-party system and the same old ancient motherfuckers still there and only worried about getting reelected. I mean, give me a fucking break. Nancy Pelosi looks like a fucking skeleton. Joe Biden, no offense, Dems, but you know his handlers are trying their best to keep him from just being a complete fuck up. He is senile and he is not there. Trump, I didn't vote for Trump last election. 2016, I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Hillary either. I did a write-in vote, and I voted for everything else that was important. But I couldn't even hold my nose and vote for Trump. But this year, I did vote for Trump. I've already voted, and I have several friends that did the same thing that I did, right? We got to talking. And those people that didn't vote for Trump last time are going to vote for Trump this time. So here's the really bad news for Democrats. The silent majority is a real thing. You see, what has happened is that the media politicians in Hollywood have decided that they're going to control the language and decide what is appropriate speech and what is not appropriate speech. So, the same thing that happened in 2016, where the polls looked like Hillary was going to win, and then she got her ass whooped by Trump, is what's going to happen now. The polls are going to be wrong. And I'll tell you why the polls are going to be wrong and continually be wrong. Because the silent majority, when a pollster calls them up or catches them in a parking lot, they look at the guy that may look to them to be somebody that is left-leaning. They just tell them what they want to fucking hear so that they can go on about their business. They don't really want to talk to some douchebag with fucking gauges in his ears and a nose ring and some fucking multicolored haircut and, you know, sit and get into a political discussion. So they're like, oh, yeah. They'll either say, oh, I'm undecided. And then if the chat starts, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for Biden. You know, it just expedites the process. People don't have time to sit and talk to pollsters and have no desire to. So all your polls are fucking wrong. And I'm predicting now you're going to get Democrats. I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to get a rude awakening this election. And it's because the people that you have in your party to package, market, and sell your product are completely out of touch. They're all multi-millionaires and billionaires who have never been in touch with the real average American people for a very, very long time. They do focus groups and all this stuff to try to get in touch with the average American person, but they don't. It doesn't fucking work. You don't sell your product well. Whereas you look at Trump's out there right in everybody's face saying, fuck the establishment, I'm going to do what I want. And then everything that he said during the 2016 election, people were shocked and pissed off that once he got in office, he actually did what he said he was going to do. He's anti-establishment. Republicans don't really like him very much. Democrats don't really like him very much. And that's why the American people love that motherfucker. All right? So, Democrats, you got to work on marketing and selling because y'all really, really suck at it. Republicans, you need to sit and start thinking about being a little bit more centrist and realizing that not all the Democrats' ideas suck. All right? I tell you what, this is still the greatest country in the fucking world. But we do got some work to do. Y'all have a good night.